this morning, which is Touche Brown from Maggie's Centres. And he's going to be talking about brilliant basics for a tribute fund campaign. So Touche has been in post at Maggie Centres for about a year and 6 months and has lots of experience to share with you this morning, and has very kindly put together this presentation. So I'm going to hand you over, and I'm just going to dip out and I'll pop back at the end when we're looking at the questions. So over to you.
Great. Hi, good morning, everyone. It may be a bit too late, but I'm still going to say Happy New Year, and I hope you're all keeping well. And thank you to Sally as well for having me on the call today. I really look forward to presenting to you. So what I'm going to be talking about today is overcoming some challenges we have around our in-memory fundraising, and also our tribute funder scheme. And the way I'm going to talk about it will be starting by covering the areas which were highlighted to us that needed improvement, and then following on with the changes we've made, and then finally finishing up with what we're currently working on for kind of the next year or the next 2 years going forward. As Sally said, any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll also have time at the end as well to kind of go through that. So the first thing I want to start off with is just a bit of history about who we are. So our founder, Maggie Jenks, she used her own experience of having cancer to create a new type of cancer. So unfortunately, when she was 47, Maggie was diagnosed with breast cancer. And then 5 years later, when she went back to a visit to a hospital in Edinburgh, she was told it had returned. It was at that time that Maggie realized that there was a need for a better place of care for people with cancer to go, somewhere which was outside the hospital, but still nearby to it, somewhere which wasn't as clinical and kind of a bit more of an emotional touch for them during such a difficult time. As you can see in the photo here to the right, we have Maggie, and on the left, we have our current CEO, Laura. So she was actually there from the development of the first building and is still here while we're currently developing on our 25th now. So the first Maggie's opened in Edinburgh in 1993, and we now have 24 centres across England and Scotland, with 3 more currently being built. So our goal is to get to 30 centres by 2030. And then at Maggie's, we provide a lot of free expert care and support in centres across the UK and online. So we have cancer support specialists, psychologists, and benefit advisors who help everyone with cancer, as well as their loved ones. So we take a whole family approach here at Maggie's. We offer a wide variety of support. So some of the things that we deal with is managing emotions, so dealing with a diagnosis, managing stress, emotions after treatment, managing practically, so talking about nutrition, benefits, travel, managing symptoms and side effects, of course, as well as managing socially, so talking to your children, how to deal with living alone with cancer, any personal relationships and cancer, as well as supporting someone with cancer, so whether adult or young carers, bereavement support, and then support for employers too. So we try and cover that across the board with all of our support at Maggie's. So what we did is in 2023, we worked with Legacy Voice, so part of the Legacy Futures family, to hold an in-memory health check. And what that does is basically help show you how your program stacks up against other charities and where your resources are focused. So we did a lot of insight work with them and helped outline some opportunities and challenges we had at Maggie's. They were able to provide some key findings as well, which I'll come on to later, which we use as a basis for helping to develop our tribute fund scheme, as well as our general in-memory offering here at Maggie's. So this is kind of the breakdown of how it works with an in-memory health check. So moving on now to the areas of development. So after we had that work with Legacy Voice, these are the 4 areas which were highlighted as a need to improve. So we found engagement both internally and externally, so with supporters as well as staff. We needed to improve how we promote our core in-memory offerings as well as developing our in-memory support stewardship, and finally improving our data recording. So just moving on to engagement. So working with centres is a key thing with us. As I said, we have 24 centres, and up until recently, our in-memory activity was organic, which means it was handled by each centre separately. We're currently trying to make a move to make a more centralised process, but it's been quite a big change, as you can imagine. On promotion, as I said, it was external and internal. For journeys, our main focus was on an email journey. So we currently didn't have anything to offer to our supporter once they've actually completed the action of fundraising for us. So we wanted to make some nice kind of touch points for them, as well as other touch points throughout their journey to kind of bring them down that marketing funnel. And just on data recording, so we wanted to improve our data accuracy. And then also along that, it would be also extended to wider teams. So making sure that the teams who handle back-end coding and donations are also following the process and entering it accurately, as it would kind of affect our centres and their budget going forward, which means what they're offering for next year. Just moving on to capacity. So as I mentioned before, memory is managed by centre staff, and you have to take into consideration these centre staff are dealing with people coming into centres as well as groups and events happening. So it is a very busy time for them. And also alongside that, some of them weren't completely confident around the in-memory processes, mainly due to not working on it before or due to being new to the actual organisation. So what we did is we helped plan some drop-in sessions for centres. So what they could do is they could come in and we could share some support which they would find helpful. This could also be passed down kind of to other centres who had missed a call. So we had that going. We also tried to look at streamlining the tribute page thanking process for our centres. So as I mentioned before, they have a very kind of busy day-to-day. So anything we can make easy for them would kind of help improve that. Also along that, we created a single point of contact for any inquiries about tribute funds, just to help kind of drop that SLA time. So if a supporter does get in touch, we're able to respond to them and help them with their query as quick as possible. So the way we did that as well was through our drop-in sessions, we just helped identify key areas of development. So we did that by working with centres as well as coming from kind of our viewpoint as well. And what this did for me, I found, was help develop the relationship between me, myself, and the centres. So kind of helping to boost that internal engagement as well, which I found was very helpful kind of going forward with any other things we had planned. With streamlining, what we did was create a dashboard. So centres had quick access to all tribute fund details. This meant that not everyone needed an account. If they wanted any details quickly for thanking or just kind of look for records, they could put it up very quickly. It was very easy to use as well, so any new staff would kind of pick it up quite quickly. Alongside this, we've also created a weekly process to thank new tribute fund creators. So what we do is we'd highlight new tribute funds that are created, pass these on to centres and get them to engage with them through lighting the candle or leaving a message, which was just helping to develop that relationship between supporters and their local centre. We also identified any pages with anniversaries during the month so that centres could thank them or interact with them without having to search. It was just an important thing for kind of supporter engagement and making sure that we are thanking them for them taking the time to fundraise for us, especially during such a difficult time. So just to help the capacity of our centre staff, one thing we did was create collateral. So after speaking to centres, we learned they would benefit from having something they could give to supporters to explain the tribute fund scheme. So our flyer kind of had a blurb about our tribute fund scheme, as well as a QR code bringing us straight to the Maggie's branded co-page. Our thinking was that our centre staff could have these conversations and pass on to supporters, which means they didn't have to do it in the centre at that moment. They could take it home, take their time and think it through. So hopefully in our head, it led to more people actually using the service. It also helped kind of improve the confidence around our staff being able to talk about the subject. So as I mentioned, especially new staff who may not have any background in memory or just kind of starting to get to hands with the process, it was helpful to have this leaflet in front of them, which would kind of help with the conversation they were having in centre. And as I mentioned before, alongside this, we had other touch points. So the tribute fund candles and any kind of centre contact, which would be kind of offline through handwritten cards, or it could be digital for like emails or calling. Another piece of feedback we had from our centre staff was that some supporters struggled with setting up a page. So what we wanted to do is create a quick and easy guide, which we could hand to our supporters either in centre or digitally to help them create a guide. I think one thing that I kept in mind that although the process may be easy for me or you, we had to remember the type of supporters we interacted with, which could be elderly or people going through an extremely stressful and emotional time. And we know how that kind of affects your brain and your ability to think and read. So we wanted to take that in consideration and just make it a quick guide to kind of help them. Moving on to data entry, so just kind of improving our data recording. So as I mentioned before, the data wasn't being recorded as accurately as we wanted. Alongside that, we also had little memory functionality to capture key details. So that would be through our CRM and also for our website. So some things we wanted to improve. This meant we didn't have all the details we wanted to use in communications, such as motivations, which I thought was important. So some of the things we did is acquired a new database functionality to help improve data capture. We also provided some training around in memory to our centre staff. And then we created process documents as well for additional support. So alongside that training that we're providing one-to-one or in sessions, we had these process documents here, which were to hand for staff to kind of go back and reread through, or to provide to new staff so they have it as support when they kind of go through their first processes. So just on the database functionality, what we did is we helped identify what functionality would be beneficial. So we both looked at it from my viewpoint when I'm adding information on, and also for any future campaigns I had planned, as well as for centre staff for the information they needed to use, whether it's through thanking or fulfillment, or just generally knowing kind of what's happening on their memory activity. It also helps with future communications and more personalization. So for us, it's kind of like a win-win. So what we did is we added a tribute fund module to our CRM, which helps capture kind of more detail around motivations, the deceased's name, their date of birth, date of death, things like that. As I mentioned before, we also provided training. So we did kind of one-to-one support sessions with our centre staff, as well as offering drop-in sessions, which were held weekly for staff to come in and raise their own queries or issues. We found this helpful because it got us thinking about kind of what are the most beneficial things for the staff coming directly from them. So it was quite nice because he wasn't kind of just imposing and telling them, you need to learn this and do this. It was more kind of a consideration, asking them, what would you find useful, knowing that you're handling day-to-day activity on this. And as well as much love, we were able to offer refresher sessions. So extremely helpful for our new staff. And we've had staff kind of asking about it all year. So it's something they did find beneficial. So again, thanks so much love for that. But as I mentioned, with 24 centres handling their own in-memory activity, there was some inconsistency in our processes. So we definitely needed to kind of iron that out before we moved on to anything bigger, just to make sure we had confidence in our data. And then, yeah, for us, I think it's just taking into consideration what is best for the centres. As I mentioned, they have a really busy time. So for them, it could be like a lot more different depending on the support they need. Just talking about some of the process documents we provided. So we created them for centre staff just to make sure they had it to hand. Again, just a lot easier for them to look and read through it instead of having to wait on me in case I'm caught up in a meeting or anything like that. We also created a Teams channel to provide support, share updates, and store documents. So they had one centralized place that they could go through for all the information they need if they wanted to ask a question or if they wanted to check in the data around their memory activity. And then discussion of why the teams as well took place, just to ensure that they were following through the processes and our data and our process was accurate from start to finish. So when I'm talking about that last point, that would relate to our support care team, who would handle any donations and kind of any unsolicited messages that come through about tribute funds. So it's good for them just to know the process as well as to make sure they were confident in it too. It was important as well because their work obviously affects the centre staff and their budget. So just making sure everything was correct was kind of key to being able to provide support for the next year or so. And then moving on to stewardship now, so developing our stewardship journeys. So in memory, as I mentioned, was mostly organic before and handled by centres. We're trying to move it to a bit more of a centralised process, while also including our centres. One thing was there wasn't any email journey or an agreed thanking process. So once supporters created a tribute fund or left a donation, they received the initial thank you, but then they wouldn't receive anything in memory related from us after that. They would receive general communications, but considering kind of the time they're in and what they're going through, it may not have been suitable for them. So what we did is we created an email journey for tribute fund creators. And we also agreed on the thanking process and streamlined it for our centres, as well as adding extra touch points, which would help complement each email journey. So now when supporters created a tribute fund journey, they'll receive a set of 4 emails, which I'll come on to. Yep, so they receive a set of 4 emails over the course of 3 months. The journey was kept short as well, so the main aim for us was just to thank the supporter. And then alongside this, like as mentioned, other touch points. So centre staff lighting candles or getting in touch directly with the supporter. So our emails would be going out every 3 weeks, and we wanted to take in consideration what the supporter may find useful at that current time. So we originally planned for 10 emails, but we felt a shorter, more engaging journey would be more suitable. Our thinking was that for people who are currently grieving, as I mentioned before, we know how it affects the brain and ability to process information and retain it. So we thought we'd kind of keep it short and sweet and engaging at that moment. One thing we also did as well, we chose to ring fence these supporters. length of that journey for the 3 months before moving them into general communications. So this means once they create that tribute fund, we would have them only receiving these emails for the first 3 months of their kind of journey at Maggie's before going on to our general communications. And then obviously, depending on their second action, what other communications they've received. So I won't go through each of the emails, but I will quickly just talk about messaging and some of the content and call to actions of them. So our first email, which is sent instantly after someone's created their tribute fund, was just generally around initial thank yous and kind of tribute fund features we wanted to highlight. So the email is just talking to the supporter, basically thanking them for creating the tribute fund and a bit of detail about the support they'll be able to offer, but then mainly focusing on the features available to them on their tribute fund. And what we do, we have a call to action asking them to add some memories to their tribute fund. So basically, our thinking was we wanted them to kind of pad out their page, which helps with social norming. So hopefully getting kind of more people adding on kind of messages, images, stuff like that, just to get their page started. Email 2 as well would go out 3 weeks on. So this will be talking about the importance of their support. The content will be mainly talking about the support at Maggie's that we're able to offer due to their donations. So letting them know that without their donations, we couldn't be able to do this for people living with cancer. So it really is important. And what we tried to do is highlight with a case study. So we had a case study about Ernest and his 2 children who were using Maggie's after, unfortunately, his wife passed away. I think it's a lovely story which highlights the whole family approach we take at Maggie's. So not only was we supporting him and his wife and the children during her diagnosis, but unfortunately when she passed away, we helped him and his sons to also kind of talk about the subject, as well as any other benefits and things that they were kind of due to. So it kind of shows our progression at Maggie's of not only helping the person with cancer, but also the people around them who we know is affected by cancer, unfortunately. Email 3 was just around sharing their tribute. So what we tried to do is get a case study which highlighted how memory giving can be used to celebrate a loved one's life. So a lot of the messaging we're trying to do around in memory is that although it is talking about a deceased loved one, it could be used as a way to celebrate their life and just remember all the things that's happened, which I think is a really nice thing to kind of play on. So what we did is we included a tribute fund story through Jenny. Jenny and her husband, unfortunately, were going through a cancer diagnosis, or her husband was, sorry. He unfortunately passed away. After he passed away, he left a wish that he wanted a Maggie's to be built in Birmingham, which we currently don't have. Since then, Jenny and her family have been fundraising, helping to provide donations so that we are able to build a centre in Birmingham, just based off of his last wish. One of our best performing tribute fund pages, loads of engagement. They do a lot of events, constantly updated. And I think their total income right now is around 30K. So it is a really great case study to focus on and just show the power of kind of a tribute fund and what it can do. And I think it ends really nicely with a message, or sorry, a quote from Jenny, which just shows that how creating this tribute fund and getting the family together and fundraising in memory of him and still remembering her husband really kind of helped through that difficult time. And then we have a call to action there, just sharing that tribute fund. So sharing it through social, email, we just give them the prompt to kind of push it on to any family members that haven't seen it at the moment. And then finally, our email 4 will be around support links and final thank yous. So just a final thank you to the supporter for fundraising for us. And again, mentioning just kind of what they've done with their work. At this point as well, we also include a link to support. So we want to offer any support we can to these people because we know they are going through quite an emotional time. And then we give them a prompt to come into the center as well. So our emails are written from the perspective of our center fundraising managers. So it ends asking them to come in and just basically see what their donations are providing at Maggie's. So yeah, it's a really nice call to action, ask them to click, find a bit more about their local center, and then again, playing on that relationship between our local centers and our supporters as well, which we find is a very big thing at Maggie's. So just on center contact as well. So we wanted centers to interact with new tribute funds and death anniversaries. And we also wanted them to thank the supporter directly. So again, trying to build that relationship between our local centers and our supporters. We found that there's a much stronger connection with our local centers compared to Maggie's as a national organization. So we're currently just keeping that in mind with our communications. So yeah, helping develop that relationship was a big thing. And it also helped to give ownership of the tribute fund scheme back to the centers too. So it kept them a bit more engaged, considering that they are managing this day to day and they are managing their own budget line. And it's also important as well for us because centres needed to be aware, just in case any of the deceased family does come into the centre. We always want to make sure we're thanking them properly, and then we should have that information kind of to hand, knowing kind of who's coming in and who we should be thanking properly. So it was an important thing, especially kind of in local centres where people know each other and it is a lot smaller than kind of a national organisation. So as mentioned, our centres manage their own social accounts as well. So promotion wasn't always like consistent amongst all our centres. So what we started to do is run a memory activity from a national social account from our London office. We also started to plan content for centre social accounts too, so helping to kind of provide content from both sides. And then also looking where we could add any in-memory messaging to wider communications. So what we did there is we worked with other teams, just trying to see where it'd be applicable to add in some in-memory messaging. Just knowing that a lot of people kind of in our organization, our supporters will kind of have an in-memory motivation behind it. They may not be aware of a way of giving like this. So we just wanted to highlight that. And I think it was just important to set a standard across all our centres too, because we wanted everyone to be consistent and just making sure we're providing the same support and service to all of our supporters. But just on social activity, so we wanted to bring awareness to the tribute fund schemes, which was the main aim when posting this. So we have plans on this to keep it always running. So it will be perpetual year round kind of going out, and we're currently working on a schedule. We also wanted to make our centres and digital teams more aware of potential stories. So that is helping kind of with engagement too. So I think one thing we did find is that it creates a halo effect for in-memory giving. So when people see these posts online, they may think in their head they'd like to do something similar, helping to kind of drive people towards that tribute fund scheme, as well as kind of donations which come back from it too. And I think one thing which was quite important in my head was that fact where they say someone who's left in memory gift is 3 times more likely to be a legacy pledger too. I work in both legacy and in memory. So for me, knowing that these people have great leads and could be converted from in memory givers into legacy pledgers was very important. So just being aware of kind of the value of these supporters as well. So yeah, I feel like it really created a nice digital space as well. So instead of our accounts just being loads of like kind of corporate posts, they didn't feel as natural, and loads of stock images, it's a lot of user generated content. So it just makes it feel more natural, more engaging, and just kind of you feel like you could fit in, hopefully again driving on that social norming. And as I mentioned before, it did just help drive internal engagement. So now we have our centre staff and digital teams trying to source more content, which just brings them a bit closer to our in-memory activity and just kind of makes them a bit more engaged with the whole process overall. So as I mentioned, we tried to look at where we could include in-memory messaging, like wider communications. So currently looking at, currently looking at including it in our newsletters too as well. So looking at kind of literally where it could go in as much as possible. So what we did is we realized there was an opportunity for other team supporters to also be involved in this tribute fund scheme. So we just had a general look at what communications felt appropriate to have our messaging included. And then hopefully our plan is that this will just drive awareness around it, which is further again moving away from an organic way of working that we've had at Maggie's before to a more centralized process now. Yeah, so just moving on to the key takeaways I got from kind of starting up the tribute fund scheme, going from organic to a bit more centralized and taking more ownership myself. I think one thing for me was the data, so database functionality, sorry, and any data entry we're doing. I don't think I have to stress how important it is to have the correct information, as well as using it in the appropriate way too. So I found having the correct information to hand and also having kind of more information which you could add to personalization was great. It really improves the quality of our communication, with our supporters, which in my head feeds into the next point around stewardship. So I already know, and I'm sure you do too, acquisition of these supporters is key, but so is retention of them. So in my head, once we get them into the funnel, it's about kind of bringing them down and how we can keep them engaged. We don't want people to just leave one donation and then kind of lose touch with the charity. We do kind of want repeat donations, just people accessing our services, bringing more awareness to it, just generally being more engaged and open to our organization. And then just highlighting how these supports are quality leads. So they really shouldn't be forgotten. As I mentioned before, they're 3 times more likely to go into a legacy pledger. So these people should be nurtured and stewarded correctly, just because you should know the value of them. And then a really key point for me, and one which I know Sally has always highlighted that much loved as well, and I found really helped, was just internal engagement. So I think really getting people engaged at the work and getting them closer and getting them genuinely excited about doing the activity was really helpful. I found it just improved the quality of my work and service. It really helped open up new opportunities too, knowing that people kind of come into you with opportunities they think would work, ideas as well. It just kind of took away from having to do all the thinking and planning. And also you kind of got some context from them as well, what would work better in centres. Because you can find it quite difficult working in an office, but trying to plan for a centre, which you don't have any kind of like day-to-day activity in or any kind of relation to. So for me, I definitely found it kind of helps to make the work easier, as I would assume it did as well for our centre staff. And it just means that our support is already engaged. So just moving finally on to Horizon. So some things we have planned for 2025 and going into 2026, which we think will help benefit our tribute fund scheme. So currently looking at introducing an in-memory event for all of our centres. We're not quite sure how this is going to look. We have a bit of difficulty mainly due to our centres are unique in that they can't be changed. So our centres are planned with an architecture and built in a certain way for a certain reason. So we really try not to change anything from the paintings on the wall to the books which are in the library. We try and keep it quite stock. So we're trying to find something we can do in centres which won't kind of disrupt the ebb and flow as well as daily activities and go from there. So that's currently our thinking, as well as kind of looking to improve our forms as well. So we want to make sure our data capture is better as well, which again allows more personalization, just improves our communication. And I think just gives you more confidence in the data too, which I think is a key thing. And then finally, we're currently looking at what digital products we are able to offer our supporters. So again, for us, as I mentioned, we can't really do anything in centres. So we're looking more from a digital standpoint now. What we'll be starting with is dedication pages for key dates. So we're going to be targeting Father's Day, Mother's Day, and Christmas with a dedication page. We're also going to run some social activity alongside this, as well as get some emails going out around the time too. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Apologies if I sped through some of that and it wasn't too clear. I will be sending the notes over too. If you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. And I thought it might be nice just to end on a minute video, just to kind of give you a bit more context about Maggie's and what we do, and just kind of get a bit more of a view. Can't seem to.
It was playing.
It was playing. Is it? It's not full screen though, is it?
No, I think if you think it, I don't know if you click the box next to YouTube, whether it will or someone's saying they can't hear the video. I can hear it. Can anyone else hear it?
I'm
You can hear it. Okay, cool. But so some people can hear it. That's good. So I don't know if you click.
I'm just going to quickly make it a bit bigger on my screen, just so that we can see it, and then I'll
you
click it
might
back
be able
on.
to hear it now because they're not playing it now. But the voices were very quiet.
Okay, let me see what I can do with this. Sorry, apologies. Ooh.
Anyway, whilst we're working out how to sort out the video, if you've got any additional questions, then this is a really great time to pop them in. And then once we've played the video, or if we can't play it, we'll pop a link to it in the chat. Then we can come back to the questions. So
Give it a try now. I think I've got it working. Share.
Such a scary word. Suddenly you just
so much. And somebody said the spaces look beautiful. They really do look really quite special. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, there had to be one time in there. They
Yeah.
are lovely buildings, and as I mentioned, they're all across the UK, as well as in Hong Kong, Amsterdam, Japan. There's quite a lot of our buildings. So if you ever are near one, please do just go in, have a look, have a little look around, speak to the staff there. Most of our staff are volunteers who you'll be speaking to at the start, so it is a really nice kind of warm, engaging feel. But always welcome to everybody, and if you know anyone that can benefit from our kind of support, you know where to send them.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for such a fabulous presentation and for sharing so much information and about your tribute fund scheme. So there's been quite a good amount of questions. Now, one I've seen a couple of times is people are interested in what CRM system you use.
Yeah, so we currently use Thank You. It's my first time actually using Thank You. I came from Dynamics 365, which was my main thing, and First Class. It's had some teething problems, definitely. It hasn't had the full functionality we needed, but it does the job what it can do. But if you're looking for a recommendation, I think there are a couple which we can definitely give over, but we're currently using Thank You, which isn't kind of the norm as I've found in the sector.
Okay, brilliant. And somebody else has asked, how do you keep up to date with significant anniversaries throughout the year to light a candle or a message on a tribute fund for the supporter?
Good question. So as I mentioned before, we tried to set up some processes and streamline it. We don't focus on birthdays. We feel it's a bit too personal. So we've left that for families and kind of closer people to do that. But on death anniversaries, what we do is I pull the data for each month. So January, February, March. I pull everyone that has a death anniversary on that during that month. I put it into an Excel document, and I also add in kind of the center designation. From there, what I do is I post it at the start of the month, and I have centers go in, look for their center or filter by it, and then add every death anniversary that they have to their calendar. It could be a small amount or a lot, depending on the center, obviously. And then what we get the center to do is just that once they get a reminder in the morning, just to go on, leave a message, light a candle, make sure the message is from everyone at the center, and that should be it. So for us, we found that having the Teams channel, that document for them to go in and have a look and for me to update, and then for them just having kind of an agreed process, putting it in their diary and thanking them on the day once notifications come up. Haven't had any issues and have only positive feedback around it too. It's a very simple process, but it works.
Yeah, excellent. Well, there's quite a few questions around the email journey. So I'm going to try and amalgamate them so you can answer them all in one go. So people want to know about if you email all tribute owners or only those with consent. I've got a couple of things to add to that, whatever your response is. I think emails personalised because we noticed that they say we've got the use of friend in them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah,
And then there was
so,
one about analytics, about the results of those journeys as well.
Okay, yeah, I'd come on to them. So they are still very fresh. They've only been running for about just under a month, so it's not a lot to talk about. But
Okay.
so what was the first point there? Was do we send it to everyone
Yeah.
or only those who consent? So yeah,
Yeah.
what we try and do is that the email journey goes to only those who consent to, obviously. So if they've signed up to it, they're added onto it. We also include any kind of communication changes too. So we have a footnote in our emails if people do want to kind of come off the journey or change their communication preferences. They can do it then and there, just to capture anyone that may have slipped through the crack that didn't mean to give their permission and is now on the journey. I haven't had any issues with it. I think people are added quite quickly, and as I mentioned, they have the option to unsubscribe when they want. But as far as I know, we haven't had any unsubscribers yet.
And
And
the
then,
reason, and then do you personalize them or do they all go to dear friend?
no, yeah, sorry. So the dear friend was just from our draft build. I didn't want to put the proper details in just in case. But yeah, they are personalized. So all our emails, all four of them will feature the deceased name, the name of the person as well, the tribute fund owner. It will have a link to their specific much love URL as well. So once they click an image or the button, it goes directly to the page they've set up. And it also has their center as well. So if there is any center affiliation, it will mention that. So instead of saying come into your local Maggie's, it will say come into Maggie's, West London or Nottingham or etc. So their personalization will be around the deceased, as well as their center, and then also their URL page. So it is personalized to each person.
Okay, brilliant. And I guess if you've got any, I mean, you've only been doing it for a month, so you may not have any clear results, but or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some.
Not much to report at the moment. So our thinking is we're going to do like an interim report with like 3 months in. It's kind of half of when we would usually do it. And then 6 months in, we'll have a better look. We're using Dot Digital, which is really great for analytics. They have their own report function, really easy to compare. The only problem is obviously only being kind of 3 weeks a month in now, people are only on the second email, so they haven't received the third and the fourth yet. So not much to report on, unfortunately. Haven't had any complaints, which is always a good thing. So I guess that's a win in my book. But yeah, definitely, I can always touch base kind of, or get in touch through my email kind of like in a month or two, and I'll definitely have some results for you to kind of go through.
I would just like to add on the consent, because when someone creates a much loved tribute, they opt in through a charity partner account. They have to opt in to our terms and conditions, and on the much loved terms and conditions, we clearly state that the charity will be in touch with them about their tribute page. Now, they can't create a tribute page without opting in. So in effect, all of your tribute page fund holders that have set up a tribute through your own scheme will have opted in to receive more information about the tribute page. So not to be included on general marketing campaign emails, but they could be included on emails like this because it's supporting them with their tribute fund. There's quite a lot of interest in your social media, and it was fabulous to hear that you've actually got that running, because that's definitely something that a lot of our charity partners really struggled to get in place. So questions around whether you're running paid ads or these organic ads.
So yeah, these will all be organic at the moment. As I mentioned, we've gone strictly organic with our social, our memory activity to move into more of like a centralized process, which includes paid activity. We definitely have plans in the future for paid activity. We're currently just trying to make sure that we're getting the most out of organic means first. So kind of making sure that we're using all of our centers accounts as well as our own account before kind of going through paid kind of as a surplus. So I'm completely organic at the moment. Luckily for us, that's kind of like 24 accounts plus our national one, which is 25. So it is quite a lot of in-memory awareness going out, and it is kind of across the country too. So we do feel like it has a good reach depending on where you're going.
Yeah, okay. Oh, somebody's asked whether the consent includes when a funeral director set up the page. No, it's separate if the page is being created by a funeral director and you're the supported charity through that page. You could get in touch with them and thank them, but you can't include them on your mailing list or sort of comms unless they have opted in. So that's a slightly different process. So we talked about what platform you used. There was another, I think we had time for one more question. I think there was somebody asked about converting any of your in-mem supporters into regular givers.
Legacy pledges, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Oh wait, is a question about regular givers?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we have included actual communications in the regular giving communications going out. So we've included in-memory messaging, which I showed earlier before. We're currently working on plans around how people can convert from in-memory givers into regular givers. So our thinking is that this email journey will obviously help with kind of engagement and kind of selling Maggies to them. And we're going to be looking at how we can introduce them from the other side of regular giving. So we do have plans in the work. A lot of our tribute fund scheme is still quite fresh. So it is kind of like a perfect world situation. We will be getting there, but definitely something we're looking at, and we shouldn't be ignoring them at all.
Brilliant. And there was another question about running paid ads or organic. So I think you covered that it's just organic. Do you do it at particular times of the year, or are you just sort of posting when you've got good content to put out?
Yeah, so we're currently doing it kind of ad hoc when we have good content. Again, perfect world, our plans are that we want to have a schedule going, and we'd like to kind of identify themes. So if there are kind of themes running throughout the month around a certain type of cancer or a certain thing happening kind of globally or nationally, we'd like to play on that theme. So we're definitely looking at developing the schedule. That will be next steps.
Okay, brilliant. And I think we've got time for one more. Somebody's asked if you were able to share how you convert to legacy pledges.
Yeah, I can. So we're actually doing like analysis on our database now to try and see people's life cycles. So kind of seeing how people convert and the journey they take when they go from kind of in memory or different kind of entry points. I don't have anything kind of hard or tangible to share. I can maybe talk about some things we found which we think helps to convert people into pledges. But I wouldn't have any kind of figures to throw your way, at least not for a couple months, because we're still kind of finalizing our numbers from last year. But again, all these things, if I do have any findings, please do get in touch with my email. It's the start of the year, but I think by the end of or towards the end of Q1, I'll have a bit more kind of confidence around figures and numbers, and we can definitely talk about what we thought worked in that.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of the session, and thank you again, Tisha, so much. What a valuable session for so many of the audience today, and what a big audience you got as well. So yeah, thank you very much for your time this morning and the prep that it took to pull this together. You're getting a lot of love, so yeah, so
No,
feel
thank
free
you for
to
having
use
me.
the interactions. They're nice to see floating up the screen.
They are definitely. It's a good start to the day. So thank you everyone for coming. And thank you, Sally, for having me and the support you provided as well over the past kind of year and a half.